A lot of stuff. Did everybody get the materials? Triads. In my life, chord progression, key of G, Georgia on my mind, key of F, the lead sheet, and that was it as far as materials. Triads. I don't. Yeah, today's topic, I wanted to discuss just triads the most, because I find like that's a element of playing kind of more solo style that a lot of students have not spent a lot of time on. They know their grip shapes, their cowboy shapes, but they often don't know their triads all over the neck and the fretboard. So this worksheet that I have is called Triad Study Number One. It's just, so here's what was on that list as I was deciding exactly what I wanted to do just for today. I wanted to present the topic of triads. Make sure you know major, minor, diminished, augmented. There'll be just a little bit of, okay, I always say that. There'll be some theory involved. I want to take it through in my life. I want to also make sure that you can start to move these inversions around on a simple progression. Just 1-4-5 for that matter, folk style, before we do like jazz style stuff. And then also, maybe through the progression I like to use is Pachelbel's Canon in D. That's a good one too, and I did not write that out, but we'll do that. We'll talk about that together. And then I gave my little sketch of in my life of how you can apply these triad shapes and then get the melody on top to create a nice simple chord melody, not a big full arrangement, finger picking, all that stuff, but just a simple approach. And then Georgia on my mind, the same approach to something a little bit more jazzy, where you're still thinking triads. Triads are the building blocks. They could even be used on top of other chords to create extended chords and seventh chords, and ninth chords. You just start to stack them. So again, triads are going to be. And I have a YouTube video too for your review, but again, it's just really important that we do this together, and then we can apply this right away if you're not used to doing this. And I use this quite a bit in other styles too, especially if I'm just backing up a singer-songwriter, folk style. I will not be down here doing the open chords. I'll be usually up here adding in little fills and little licks. A lot of arrangements. I was going through a Beatles song the other day with one of my students who happens to be here today, and we were talking about Beatles and I Love Her, and George Harrison does this nice little triad part just right on top of the chords, and it's just really simple and very pretty. So again, you can use it as filler, or you can think a little bit more to the chord melody. I'm kind of leaving it open. I don't mind addressing certain things. I do have a kind of an agenda, of course, of what I would like to share, starting with triads, going into seventh chords, a little bit more of the jazzier progressions. I want to share Autumn Leaves, Fly Me to the Moon, All the Things You Are, just as examples for the next session. And then it could get a little bit more complex. I don't want to get too crazy and scare you guys right away, but there's different things that we could do with different techniques. Run for the border, Jim, is that what you're asking? Are you hungry? So, triad study number one then. Here we go. I'm just going to mute everybody just so we don't, I'm sorry, yeah, generally I like to have everyone muted so we don't have background, or it might go to your screen too if you're noodling around. So I'm just going to mute you. But triad study number one, here is G major. This is actually called first inversion because the third is in the bass. I generally think of what the top note is, so I usually say the root on top. The root position, first inversion, second inversion is more of a classical terminology. People still definitely use it, of course, today, but I'll probably do both. But however, the root is on top. That's G major. You might think of it as a big bar chord, where you have the root, fifth root, octave that is, and then the triad. Root, fifth root, 8, 1, 5, 8, and that's G major. Okay, but it's really important that you know 3, 5, 8, or 1. Okay, to make it minor, we flat the 3. To make it diminished, we flat the 5. That's on the 2nd string. Okay. So we have major, minor, diminished, major. And now the augmented, the special chord here, is sharping the 5th. Okay. So now the next inversion on the top 3 strings, this is kind of the approach here, is I take it sets of 3 strings at a time, and this study number 1 is only on the top 3 strings. This inversion, we all love this shape. Of course, we know that as a D shape, but now it's G. 5th, root 3rd. Minor it, you flat your 3. Diminish it, you flat your 5th. Right here. Try to hear it. And that haunting sound, the diminish. Back to major. I just borrowed here for fun, just to show you this cool little lick. The diminish is kind of bluesy sometimes, because you got the flat 5 and the flat 3, which are blue notes. So I often talk about that. And the last shape here, this is actually the root position if we're just talking about triads. 1, 3, 5. And you know this shape here, that would be the A shape if you're thinking off the cage system here, this shape. But I'm just doing the top 3. Major, let's minor it. What do? Flat the 3rd. Diminish it, we flat the 5th, the 1st string. Big stretcher. And back to major. And augmented, we sharp the 5th. Oh, I think we gotta go back to this one. I didn't do the augmented. Major. Minor. Diminish. Make this a routine. Major. Ready? Where's the 5th? Right here. Okay, that's a really neat flavor. That's often used as a dominant function. And sometimes when you hear that augmented, it'll just use the passing color like this. Sometimes you'll hear it like that as a passing note, as just a color. It's not really changing the function of the chord. It's just creating chromatic movement, voice leading. Okay, let's do that whole routine again. Hope I'm not being redundant. Down here, G major, G minor, G diminish, and G aug. Next one, the D shape, G major, G minor, G diminish, G augmented. Next one, G, and sometimes it's nice to go to the augmented. Think going back to major first. If you need to, go to major and say, oh, here's my augmented. It just helps. And I have one other little tip that I'll share with you in a second, but here's G major, G minor, G diminished, and G augmented. It's a pretty drastic color change from diminished to augmented. Here's my little tip for you. Augmented here is the same as here, is the same as here. And of course, back to the octave. If you guys didn't know that beautiful thing about the augmented triad is that it's equally distanced. So equidistant, I guess you say, 2 whole steps, 2 whole steps. From the root to the 3rd is 2 whole steps. From the 3rd to the sharp 5 is 2 whole steps. And then from the sharp 5 to the octave, 2 whole steps. It's taking that chromatic scale and dividing it up equally. I'll say easily. It's dividing the chromatic scale up equally into 2 half steps, 2 whole steps. And that's what the augmented is. It's 2 whole steps is equivalent to major 3rd. So an augmented triad equals a major 3rd and a major 3rd interval. I hope you know your intervals. If not, I guess I'll plug. I'm not trying not to plug So, I have like all my things, but I am teaching a basic music theory class starting up this week. It's on a Tuesday night. If you're like, hey, I don't know my intervals, I highly recommend that. Because we'll be talking a lot about triads, interval names, sus chords, etc. So that's a really good study there. That triad study number 1, where you're taking just those G shapes. Of course, we want to be able to mix and match those into progressions, and we'll do that in a second. We want to be able to start on A and do the same thing. This is where, again, take something that you're familiar with, try to apply these. Here's another good exercise. Go to G major, G major, G major. And if you have cutaway, G minor, G minor, G minor, G minor, G diminish, G diminish, G diminish, G diminish, G aug's the easy one. Okay, try to do that. Go up and down through your triad inversions. The key word is inversions. Try to see if you can do that. Major, minor, diminish, and go through those shapes. Okay, I think that's a very important study. And then here it is on F. F. Minor. Just to demonstrate. Diminish. Okay, etc. Of course, I like to use it in context of a song, but I think those are really good studies. The next one, I'll make triad study number 2, but it's going to be obvious. Next 3 strings. You can start that right away and go, okay, this is G major. But notice now that the root here is in root position. G minor. G dim. G major. G aug. Okay, you just got to know where. And then go to the next one. Not written, but I'll have this written out for you guys. Diminish. So again, I think these are great studies to go through your triad shapes, inversions. But for you today, in case this is brand new for you, just let's stay on the top 3 strings. So let's take a progression. Oh, any questions? You'll see where I'm going with this. Again, it's something that we take guitar players. We get used to doing this. We're not thinking about the shape. We've memorized the basic cowboy shapes and not necessarily thinking like that. But if you're a piano player, you learn that stuff right away. You go through your triad inversions and you start to be very free with it. I want to demonstrate this. This is a big concept day today. But maybe go major, minor, then the second progression separately. You can go G major, G augmented, and then G6. Which is what I just demonstrated here. I went like this. And that will get you to know that augmented pretty well each time around, especially as you go through these different inversions. So you can put G major, next measure, G augmented. These are triads. But the next measure, G6. And here's what's very, very interesting. I think I should have you guys do this with me. G major, G augmented. And then ready for this? What are you going to do for G6? I suggest you slide this finger up 1 more chromatically. Guess what? This is E minor. If I put the E in the bass, it sounds really dark and minor-y. But because our ear is just hearing it, I'm putting a G in the bass here with my thumb. It doesn't sound as minor-y anymore with the G, coming from the G. But when you hear it, of course, with the E in the bass, then it shows its true identity as an E minor triad. So this is really quite interesting. It's an interesting phenomenon here. We have the majors augmented. And I'm calling this G6, but yes, it is E minor. This is a big concept. This is a very important concept because we love these 6 chords, especially in jazz, old music, Beatles songs. But how I'm treating that E minor triad as a substitute in place of a G, or rather over G. Again, someone might be strumming a G, and I'm playing E minor. And it has this nice 6 sound. There I just did my E minor inversions, especially if I'm playing like swing. I'm thinking that stuff, a lot of E minor triad stuff. So again, that would be a great progression. Progression number 2 is G. Thanks, Tom. That's a great study. I'm gonna write that out on my Patreon page. G major, G op, G6, which is E minor, in the back, and then go up to the next inversion. And if you go up one more, that's not a triad that we know of, but it's part of the. Wait, am I lying? Yeah, that's not a triad. G, it's F, G, and B. It's not what we're talking about here. The name we were called tertian triads. They're stacked thirds. This is not one of them. So, but that's part of the G7 chord in general. So. That's a really nice movement. John Lennon, a lot of songwriters use that cliche. This. We can just have fun with those things, and we will be learning those cliches. But again, I really appreciate this question. I'm going to walk you through this exercise right here. Major, augmented, and then when you do this 6, just that, and that's E minor. So that's, again, a little bit of theory there if you're not used to that. G6 is G, B, D, E. And if you but you can get rid of the 5th. Okay, I'm saying get rid of. You can omit the 5th, rather, and you're left with E minor triad. Okay. If you kept the 5th, then you'd have an E minor 7 chord, by the way. This is where music becomes quite interesting and that they can have different names. Okay, so that's a great exercise. I appreciate that again. I think I'm going to use that too, just as create a little study written out. Major, minor, diminish, and then major, augmented, and 6 using that. And we'll be seeing that 6 in both of these 2 songs coming up here that I want to examine today as well. Okay, so again, you can take this on the next set of 3 strings if you wanted to. I'll have a formal study for you. We just want to get better at it. It's not like you're going to master this. You got to look at tunes and you want to apply it. So here's something that we could do right away, though. We could take a nice progression like 1, 5, 6, 4, key of G, common progression, the most common popular progression. 1, 5, 6, 4, 1. Right, what song? Everybody's going to be thinking of a different song. I'm saying, what song is that? When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, country roads take me home. All these great folk songs, Wagon Wheel. It's the most commonly used progression. 1, 5, 6, 4. But try to do it with triads. So with inversions. This is, again, I don't have this written down on paper, but it was something that I want to discuss, and I'll prepare it for you. But check it out. 1, that's G. Well, D, well, this is, again, you got to know your inversions. This is a big study. 6, you all know D here anyways, but now we'll go to this E minor here, and then C. So it's just a nice little, the idea behind it is to go closest inversion. So I went from G here, D, major, E minor, C, again, G, D, E minor, and C. Yes, that's correct. E minor here to C is just 1 note difference. A lot of these triads, you'll find you just change 1 note, you got a new triad. And then you would do the same thing on the next inversion. G, D, E minor, C, D. Sorry, G, D, E minor, C. So much fun just doing this. C. I'm adding in notes here, I apologize. I'm just kind of making it more interesting. G, D, E minor, C, G, D. You see where I'm going with this? You can make this really good study. E minor, C, G, D, E minor, 9, and C. So again, you have a lot of fun. That's hours of fun to me right there, taking a simple progression, pop style, and having fun. But one of the things that I was doing besides after just doing the basic shapes was adding in notes around it. So this is where you want to be aware that you can add scale tone above or below. I call these neighboring tones. And I didn't go through this with you. We can go through this, but like on the G1, you can add the 9 on. You can add the 6 on. We already talked about that. Those are just all nice colors. G, 6, 9. And if you're in this position here, I'm going above it, by the way. You all know that chord. That's a sus4. So a sus chord is when you go replace the 3rd with the 4th instead. So that's where it's sus4. This is, of course, the fun shape to do it, especially. Check this out, sus2. Some of you guys know this already, but some of you may not, so I'll go through this. It's called a sus2 because there's no 3rd. I'm replacing the 3rd with the 2. If you add the 2 in with the 3rd, it's called add 2, okay? If you have the 3rd included. But in this case, I'm replacing it. So we have sus4. This is all of this D shape, but I'm on G. Sus4, sus2. And you can use these notes beautifully with minor chords. Sus4, minor, sus2, minor. Again, the sus2 and sus4 are the same. They're not major, they're not minor, because they don't have a 3rd. That's the beauty of sus chords. So that's what I was doing a lot of times when I'm goofing around with this, is I was trying to create little melodic movements. Etc. You have a lot of fun. There I was taking the progression to in my life. 1, 5, 6, 1 dominant, 4 minor, 4, 1. I know I'm talking a lot of theory. I apologize if I'm talking too much shop talk here. We can talk in terms of letter names, but I was just taking a progression and applying it. Again, just on the top 3 strings, I'm often thinking of it as a piano player playing the right hand triads, and there's a bass thing happening there, but you're just kind of playing around with inversions, creating these beautiful, smooth voice leadings. So you could think of it as just like a trio of voices, or string trio, or whatever you might want to think about. Try to think smooth voice leading. But as an exercise, you might even be a little bit more, at first, if this is still new for you, you might be a little bit more structured about it and say, well, I'm going to go from G to D here, then E minor here, root on top, then C major. That's almost like, bar chording, parallel movement. Okay, so that's just an example. But generally, I prefer smooth voice leading. So I suggest describing something as simple as that. That's 1, 5, 6, 4, the most common progression. I when I demonstrate this to my private students, I always say I've been meaning to make a YouTube video, and I think this is so important that a lot of people have not really necessarily hit it. I'm sure it's already been done somewhere, but I feel it's really important, and I always want to refer my students to it. So I'm going to try to do that this week, if not even from this little excerpt here. But another great progression, by the way, I think this is a little bit more advanced, is Pachelbel's Canon. 1, 5, 6, 3, 4, 1, 4, 5, 1. Again, beautiful progression. Makes you feel like you're at a wedding. I'm missing all my wedding gigs this year. All the weddings have been postponed until 2021, believe it or not. So if you want to write this down, it's D, and you can look it up on the internet, of course, too. But it's D. We're in the key of D. It's called Canon in D, but it's D, A, B minor, F sharp minor, G, D, G, A. I like to think numbers versus just letter names because we want to be able to do this in any key. But it's D major, A major, B minor, the 6. There's that common progression, but instead of going right to the 4, it goes to the 3, which is F sharp minor. That's a really sweet chord. And then it goes to the 4, to the 1, D, back to the 4, and 5. 1, 5, 6. I know, it moves quickly. 4, 3. Whoa, sorry. 2, 4, 1, 4. I'm gonna slow down. And 5. I'll say it in letter names. D, A, B minor, F sharp minor, G major, D, G, A. And if I just say G or A, those are both major chords. And I'm going to do it now triads. D, A, B minor, F sharp minor, G, D, G to A. And yes, I'm adding those notes, sus4s, add 9s. That's how you can create melodies and keep it interesting. But I just start off, just do shapes. Sounds like a pop rock song now. Bands have used that as a progression for sure. It's such a catchy chord. You can't copyright chord progressions, so you can use it all you want. I like it in a minor key. I sometimes will make it in the minor key. That's a little bit more theory right now than I want to talk about. But anyways, I'm hoping this gives you some ideas before we hit In My Life and George on My Mind, which we'll do now for the remaining of the period. But any questions on triads, the importance of it, how you can add notes, how you can... Okay, so let's take a look then at the progression to In My Life, and let's actually have you guys give that a try too. Don't worry about my note for note rendering of the melody there. I would just say get the progression down. And there is going to be one little trick involved here that's kind of neat. Oh, first of all, too, is it looks like you guys printed it out. If you're looking at it online, there's one chord I like to add in. It's not necessarily in there. You can hear it on when the harpsichord is doing the little solo. When it's doing that, I like this, and I was demonstrating it. Instead of just 1 for the full measure, go to the 5 on the second half of the measure. So it has that progression that we were talking about, 1, 5, 6. So go G, D, E minor, and then this chord here, go to G, and you know, actually I don't have, let me see if I have it. I mean, I do have it, obviously. Let me load it up so I'm not changing what you are seeing. I'm talking about just the lead sheet. Actually, you could just look at my sheet. I kind of put it to how I like it. But I have, it's called In My Life Key of G PDF. Let me just look at this, what they wrote. You know, you can't always believe the PDF. But it has this intro. And I just made that as a triad. You can make it as a dominant 7. Its 7th chord has 4 notes, not just 1. So that's something to be aware of. We'll talk about that. Triads are a little bit easier. And then you have G major. Places I remember. E minor, G7. All my life. C major, high. C minor. Though some have changed. Back to the 1. And they just stayed on 1 on that chart. I like to go 1, 5, and then back to the 1. But even more so than that, but I did listen to the Beatles today. They actually do just stay on the 1, so I'm adding that 5 in. But on the words, there are places, right after places, on the words I'll remember, or I'll re, I like the 5 chord there. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate, is to put the 5 on there. So it'll be like this. There are places I remember, and then this G7, and then C minor to C minor, C major to C minor, and then back to G. And then put a D here as a turnaround 5. Okay, whether you do that later is up to you, but I'm going to use that as my example for now. So I might be changing it a little bit. And one thing that's neat and special about the Beatles, what they do on that G7 chord, is they use an inversion. They actually put the flat 7 in the bass. They put an F in the bass. They did get this chord. So you get this sound. F, it's a G triad, but the F's in the bass. That creates an inversion. Really kind of a neat, special sound. But we don't need to worry about that for now as far as just what we're doing today with the triad study. If you don't know your basic chords, bar chords, then you do have some practicing to do with just making sure you know your bar chords, major, minor, you know, diminished. And I can refer you to some worksheets if you don't know your. But the top 3 strings are what we're talking about today. So ready for this? G major. I do want you to do this with me. G major. And then here's a D major here. And again, we're adding that in because it's not on the lead sheet, it's on my sheet. And then E minor is going to be here. Okay, so we have G. We have G. D. E minor. And then for the G7, this is what's special, this little trick. Is we're going from E to F right here, from E minor, and then we're turning it into a G7 with the F there. Again, if I were to do this, you'd hear it better, but it's a really neat sound when you put it with the F there. So it's a neat trick. All you have to do is go from E minor and add that F, and then it makes it a partial G7. All we're missing is the D, the 5th. That way we could keep it a 3-note shape. And then go to C major down here to C minor. And then back to G. So again, you know, take note, like, ooh, I gotta make sure I work on those shapes. But I'm giving you one definite route right now for the song. G major, D major, E minor. Whoa. G7, this is special, inversion there. And then C major back down here, and then C minor. These are all root position. And then back to G, that's the inversion. And then D. Let's do it again. G major, D major, E minor, G7, a special one, down to C major, root position, C minor, and G major, and then D here. Let's one more time. Places I'll remember all my life, though somehow change. I know that's not written like that, but this is just muscle memory. Hopefully we'll get these shapes. And then the melody comes out of those shapes is what I'm gonna, what that worksheet demonstrates is how to add the melody note into that route so that you can kind of whip out those, pull out rather, the melody. Bring out the melody is a good word. You want to hear this. And then you can start to ad-lib a little bit more too. So why don't you guys just give that a try for it? I think that's a big study right there. And again, I'm not expecting you to master it right now, but I'm hoping that you'll work on it and start to apply it to some of your favorite Beatles songs, pop songs. You'll see this when we look at the Georgia on My Mind too. Doug has a great comment on this dominant seventh chord, and I kind of mentioned it theoretically. A dominant seventh chord is 1-3. By the way, in pop music, you'll generally see major, minor, and dominant seventh chords. You won't see as many. It's not as jazzy. You won't see major sevens and major six chords notated. You'll just see it, just the regular triads. But then the melodies might contain those notes, as this melody does when you analyze it. It has a 9, minor 7. That's E minor 7. That's actually a minor 7. But notice I'm just holding this shape, and then I'm getting the 7 on here. And then Doug's question right here, instead of doing this, is can you just do this? And B diminished. And the answer is yes, definitely. And here's the full G7 inversion. Again, I'm saving most of these 7th chord inversions to next topic, next time when we get 7th. Actually, not even that. That will be session 3. I'm trying to go about it systematically for you instead of being too spread out. We'll just be doing grip shapes next time, really. But this is a diminished triad on B. But when you do have a G in the bass, it creates a G7 chord. So a dominant 7th chord is 1-3-5 flat 7. If you got rid of the 1, you're left with 3-5 flat 7, which is a diminished. So it's something to take note of, that you can play diminished on the 3rd of the dominant chord, and then you can play your triad. And I'm talking about just triads. I'm not talking about diminished 7. These are just triads. So you can do that shape if you want to write that in instead of this. This one has that F and the G. This one just replaces the G with F. So it sounds like this. And again, we'll observe the same comment you'll probably have on my Georgia on My Mind. And then, all my life, that's a pretty note. That's that beautiful 6 in the major 7. And that's that 6 there. Let me go back and make sure I'm playing it as written there to you. I hate that when I'm playing it not written, what's written on the worksheet. So that C on the C chord, if you look at the sheet music, it's an A note. I talked about this in my last session. Some of you were there. The sixth note, 6 degrees, a beautiful note. It's often, back in the old days, it's a chord tone. The 6 is treated like a chord tone, believe it or not just 1, 3, 5. So this is C6. And yes, it's just A minor, but if you add the 4th note, it's just C6. But that's the same 4 notes of a ukulele, by the way, open strings. But this is just an A minor triad. That's what I wrote, 5, 5, 5, 5, but it's really just C6, major 6 too, without the G. And then this little lick, so it's, and that's a C minor triad. That was a C major 7. So again, these are all nice notes. So check this out. This is what I'm saying. Here's a nice exercise. C major, C6, C major 7, C6. Sounds like a Gershwin song, Where or When. But I'm thinking of it as the C triad as my foundation, my parent form. A triad, 6, major 7, dominant 7. Okay. Again, a lot of beautiful things with just simple elements of just knowing your triads. You can get all these nice colors and think very simple. So just to analyze it, C minor and then back to G. Well, actually that's it. So we have the 9. And I'm thinking of that as D, 5, 6. There's that 6. E minor 7. I'll do what Doug was saying here. Diminish here. And I just got the melody separately. And then for this G, I am doing that other inversion, or that one root position on the 4th string root. Oh, that's going to be another topic, using some 6s and stuff for a more bluesy quality. And then the B section, that E minor, all these places have their moments. I just grab this one shape and I try to extract the melody, pull it out. You can grab the whole melody. It's basically just going down the scale. Not hitting this note, but this. And then that C. So I'm thinking this E minor, 1, 3, 4. C major 7, C6. With lovers and friends. That's all F. But notice the cool color, this. And then the 9 is here. But I think on my worksheet I wrote it down here. That add 9. You can just choose it here. Or you could go. Okay, that's how I wrote it. F add 9. With lovers and friends, I still can recall. And then A, there's that 9 again. And you might say, well, the chart says dominant 7. Yes, but again, I'm just keeping it as a triad study. So I'm just doing an A major triad. And then in. And then for that part, I'm getting these little shapes moved around here. This is all C minor. Same idea, C minor 6, C minor 7. And some songs later will want C minor major 7. Ready for this? But this is all just based off the C minor triad. 6, flat 7. It almost sounds like this. But that's where that 5th, that moving 5th could be here, C, 5th, 6, flat 7. So this goes back to that topic of grabbing one shape and adding notes to it around. You can basically get the whole scale. And again, so just the triad 1, 3, 5, you can get the 2, the 4, the 6, and 7 from any of those shapes. So anyways, that's the idea with that arrangement. You can noodle around with it. It's pretty simplified arrangement. Sometimes I was adding in a few of those bass notes. You can fill it out if you want to put some low bass notes, and then maybe if you want if you want to get bigger stretches, you can make it bigger sounding by adding bass notes. But right now, this would be a great time to put on the iReal Pro app as your backing track, And now I'm just starting to improvise a little bit like I was talking about earlier with those added notes around the shape. E minor, C, F. Okay. How we doing on time? Good. Questions on this at all? Let's take a look at Georgia on My Mind, another a jazz, and we're not going to talk about any leads. Kind of even though that little worksheet does have some little soloing ideas on the bottom of it there. But the only thing with leads, the aspect of it is to connect those triads. To me, if you can connect those triads, if you have a goal in mind, you're going from G to D to E minor to G7, then you just connect the shapes by using those scale tones in between. That's a great way of doing it. And I'm not talking just arpeggio. Arpeggios are just breaking up the chord, but I'm just kind of connecting those dots a little bit. Yeah, feel free to play with that. I am going to load up Georgia, but at this point again too, this is where I'm kind of making this each lesson I'll present 2 songs. I think that's a good to give you a little bit of variety in application and topics as well. Some added notes. Are you guys trying to play this little etude? I don't even know. There's kind of a little bit of mixture of Django mixed in with the triad study there too. Some little runs, I guess a little bluesy too. But you guys can learn that and play it for us next time if you want. Hey, let's all take a look at the Georgia on My Mind lead sheet, or my easy triad version of it. If you guys don't have any other questions related to In My Life study, and hopefully again, not just memorizing what I wrote there. Again, Doug, I appreciate you saying that. I could do G7 like that for sure. I want you to have fun, feel like you can apply this to other songs. Make sure that you learn your triad inversions, and you will not get bored playing the same progression over and over. You'll have all these different things that you could do each time. I mean, I think it's huge to have fun with a song and to really get into the song. But this is an important concept, and I go through this a lot with my private students. Triads are one of the biggest things that I think are one of the foundational things. Whether you're playing leads, gypsy jazz, soloing, rock, it's just that this is stuff that's overlooked. Oftentimes people just go straight to blues licks and pentatonics, but not the triad study. So the deal with Georgia on My Mind is that lead sheet is fancier. I would recommend that you look at my simplified this is where I'm just putting out sometimes you have a lot of bass line movement. Don't get me wrong, that's nice. You know, all this stuff, that's great if you're kind of filling in, but if you're just playing some leads, this is all you might need. So there I just simplified the whole progression, but you can still hear the tune. You can hear the basic chord progression. And this is what I want to share with that A, especially just the A section for now. F major. And this is all written on that chart there. But when you extract the melody is this. Sorry, I'm going to mute whoever's, I'm going to mute. When you have the melody here, it's this. But even before we get into chord melody, remember, you got to make this an exercise for yourself. This is where there's a lot of new chords we just, went over last time. Here's F, 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 F. Now on the A7 chord, I'm going to suggest that you just do A major, triad. Don't worry about thinking C sharp diminished. That's a little bit too much thinking right now. A major, D minor, B flat minor. I love that flavor, it's bluesy. And then A minor, D, sequence it, G minor, C. By the way, I'm just doing one inversion. It's not necessarily what's written on the paper. Then it repeats A minor. I'm going to do a different one. D, G minor, C. This is supposed to be C7. I will do the diminish here. And then back to F major. A, D minor, B flat minor, A minor, D, G minor, C, A minor, D, G minor, augmented. There's a little augmented whole tone scale trick. Anyways, that's a good study right there. That's exactly what we did with In My Life. That's what we just did with Pachelbel's Canon. 1564. Just take a simple progression. Okay, it's not that simple, but take a progression that's written on the paper. In this case, you can take what I wrote, not the lead sheet that has all these fancy bass line movement. That could get confusing. Sometimes it's important to just strip it down to what is the basic sound. And I think that is the basic sound there. We can make it even a little bit more simple than that. But I think that's a nice, especially in the jazz style, especially those A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7. Those are called 2-5 progressions. We want to hear those 2-5, 2-5s. We'll get more into that during this, especially when we do. I have a great exercise we'll share later. It's all about 2-5s. 2-5s in jazz is a big study. But for triads right now, again, today's lesson, let's master triads on the top 3 strings. I find this is a great example. Listen to the B section. Reading my arrangement. Etc. Again, more hours of fun with just those triad shapes and goofing around. And you can put the backing track on if you want, have the bass on there. I usually take out the piano. The piano kind of gets in the way for the iReal Pro. I didn't demonstrate that yet, but I will. And then again, just that A, perhaps just the A section for a while, to where you can memorize it, get away from the chart. Really, we want to get away from that sheet music as quickly as possible. learn the progression. In this case, F. You can even just do it folk style. F, A7, D minor, B flat minor. I'm going to use B flat minor 6. Then A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7. Repeat. And this is another topic. We'll get into this as we get into what I call those grip chords down there. But today, hopefully, is I was going to say easy, but I know it's not once we add all those inversions. But again, it's a really good study to get those triad shapes down. But I would honestly just, Joel, you might just do this at first, just to get a good idea of the basic progression. Little runs. And then we can have more fun in adding those other chords in too. But I think a lot of it really helps to know the top 3 strings to create these little runs and licks too. So when we look at the actual arrangement, I'm looking up, there's no comments. We have F major, A major, and we're going to get the 7 here, the flat 7. Oh, this is another good thing, that the melodies usually are like 80% chord tones, unless it's like a scalar melody, but otherwise the melody notes just come right out of there usually. So you have this to this, and on the D minor I made this a little study to go to using the inversions. 1, it doesn't use the other one, but then it goes to B flat minor 6 here, and then minor. So notice that B flat minor 6 is not a triad. You might say, well, it's not a triad, but actually it's B flat minor. Here's a 6. We did that earlier in my life, and then here's flat 7. Same little study. So you'll get to know these little tricks. So again, from the top, let's see, 3, 4. A major. Try to map out the shapes. D, I'm going to hit the open string. Triad inversions, B flat minor, 6. Melody, A minor. Okay, so that's B flat minor 6 to A minor. And then once we arrive on the A minor, this is the inversion. Again, huge study. A minor, A minor, A minor. But we don't need all of them. I'm just mapping out the melody. And I'm giving this to you. Of course, you can just read the tabs, but the melody is the root, the 3rd, and then we want to be on a D7 chord right now. So it's the 9 on top. I'm just making that a D with the add 9 on top. Okay, and then D. So that little riff there is really nice. We have A minor, D. Okay. A minor, root on top. That could be called first inversion. 3rd on top, second version. D, add 9 to just a regular D. And again, that's not a dominant 7th chord, even though the flat 7 should be heard in there. But it's not needed. And then the G minor, I just plucked out the melody from the shape. I could have went, but that's a little bit too much movement, too quick. I don't know, maybe not then. Maybe you could do this, or you could just go. And then on the C7 chord, I'm doing a nice trick here. A minor, G minor. That is a trick. You might say, well, how come you're not just playing C triad there? This is a really nice kind of a old school sound to hit the C. Kind of an R&B thing. To play a minor triad, A minor, and G minor, kind of creating a C9 color. If you look look at a C9 chord, for those of you that know it, I hope you know it, you have a G minor triad in there. So you're hitting the upper, this is again, I mentioned this earlier, triads can be used layered on top. So you get these extensions. That gives you the 9, a D in there, which is C9. And this, it's a beautiful flavor, very soulful again, just. Again, these are nice, simple tools that you can use. So that was a little trick I wanted to share with you. I did not just do maybe what you would expect, which is C6, but I went. And then, where does it go? A minor, sorry. And then here's another, I'm on the D7 next. And then I went, this is an interesting thing here. It's a substitute. A minor. Then for the D7, I could have went like this, but I did not. And I could have went like this too, but that would have been a flat 9. So what I did is a great trick. I went from A minor triad, and I flatted the 5th to diminish. And that would be a D7 flat 9. So I'm kind of breaking my rule there. It's still a triad though. Minor, diminish. Okay, A minor, A diminished. And you might write that on top. Correctly, if I were to have written the chord correctly, it should say D7, flat 9. That would mean A diminished on top. So A minor, A dim. That's one of my favorite tricks for 2-5. It's just to play the 2 as a play the 2 as a minor triad, and then simply diminish it, and then that's on top or in replace of your 5 chord. Very quick and easy trick, great for soloing. And then on the G minor, I use this inversion, and then that C augmented sharp 5 to bring out the sharp 5 flavor. In there, I slid around. I didn't write that in, but that would be for fun. That second half got a little bit dense there, I know, all this stuff. Back. You know, at this point, this is where you do want to turn on the iReal Pro and just play along with me. D minor, 1. I'm just going to hold the shapes. D minor, A minor, oh, 3/6. Again, now I'm just kind of working on the arrangement here. D minor, B flat minor, A minor, D, G minor, this little trick. Improvising a little bit. Etc. So now I'm just kind of having fun playing around with those shapes. Loosely, I guess you could say. I was starting to connect the dots a little bit there, instead of just trying to be glued down to exactly what I wrote. Again, if you want to, of course, that could be a nice arrangement, note for note, to the melody. But I would just suggest that you get your A minor, D, G minor, C, etc. Just have fun with those little progressions. But I don't know if you caught that trick not every time, but sometimes I did this. A minor, it's such a good trick. We'll go into this more. A minor, diminish it. G minor, diminish it. It's such a beautiful trick. I highly recommend that you get your minor and then diminish it. Minor, diminish it. I'm going to write this out. This is too important. Minor, diminish it. Minor, diminish it, and then resolve. There, I added a 9 on, by the way. This is a neat trick. F major, add 9. Really sweet sound. F minor, add 9. Really moody. Just 3 notes too. How you can get those cool colors. A little bit of a stretch, obviously. But again, what I was trying to demonstrate was this quality of going, when you have a 2-5, we'll look at this a lot more when we have 7th chords. A minor, and then instead of D7, diminish it. G minor, this might be new for some of you, this might be old for many of you, but make sure you go through your inversions. You don't even have to think about it once you get the sequence. And then you connect them. There's that little C og. The C og is a very specific color, especially for the song, because the melody is Georgia on my mind. That sharp 5, the augmented, and I'm just doing it as a triad here, just to bring out that color, specific to this song at that location. But not only if you want that flavor for the melody. It's just nice to be able to throw that augmented in because we don't get a chance to use it all that often. But that's a nice location because of the melody. Otherwise, just keep doing that thing that I had mentioned. Minor, diminish, minor, diminish. And that's a quick fix, quick trick for a 2-5 sequence. What I mean by that is minor 7 to the dominant chord. A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7. We'll see that a lot in these jazz standards. You can look at the B section. It's not anything different, really. D minor, G minor, D minor. It's B flat 7, I'm playing off the 3rd, D diminished. So that's a great trick right there on that B flat. I actually changed it from what I had. I had B flat triad before, but I was like, no, I want that diminished flavor, the flat 7. It's a bit darker, bluesier. So I went D minor. Other arms reach out to. So again, that D minor goes to D dim, which is cool, because D dim is D is a 3rd of B flat. So that's where you could do that diminished triad. And then, arms tenderly. And there's that B diminished on the G7. Okay, I didn't notate those things, but those are the use of those diminished triad inversions. Back to this. And that was D minor 7, D minor triad, E7, diminished, A minor, diminish it, G minor, and then I diminish it here, but I really should have went here. I think that's what the melody should have been, so kind of messed up on that last B section. Should be, and then back to your last A there. Well guys, thank you so much. I hope that gives you some ideas and hopefully some good examples and demonstrations of some things for you to work on. Take your favorite song, your favorite progressions, have fun with this. Next time we meet, it's gonna be more about grip chords than anything else. 7th chords and 6th chords. I'll send you the worksheet. I'll send you all the things you are, autumn leaves, and maybe Fly Me to the Moon to get you started. Again, it's not like you have to master those. I just want to make sure I give you variations for you to, look at on your own time. Any other last questions or comments?